Welcome to today's morning prototyping game dev stream. Today I wanna go and try doing some sort of Metroidvania-ish stuff. Just 2D side scroller running around and maybe somehow unlocking some new area. So, Metroidvanias are essentially games where you progressively expand. Well, you have an ever-expanding world where you maybe find secrets that open up more and more parts and stuff. And it's a bit of it's a genre where people usually discuss exactly what it means. I mean, if you're a purist, maybe it means that you have this combat like in Metroid or Castlevania. But then there are games like Animal Well, recent game, that many also consider Metroidvania that doesn't really have any combat. But anyways, we will do that. I am, as usual, using my template, my Odin hot reload template. All this stuff is, you can just use normal Odin plus Raylib if you want to, but I just use the template, so I have hot reload preset up. And yeah, so let's get started. I was thinking we start with some simple, maybe some player character stuff, just have something that you can move around on the screen. Are my glasses dirty? Not really. Good. I was like, am I seeing something funny? I'm very sensitive to dirty glasses. I have to clean them like all the time. So this is my little template here. Let's just remove, there's just some sample stuff in here that I will remove. Hello, Zach. Yeah, so the template, if you run it, wait, I need to change my build system. If you run the template, this is how it looks. This is just, it's not much. It's just here to show that hot reload works, that you can make changes while it is running. Like you could, for example, some number, you could write some number, and recompile, and it changes there. That's all the template is for. Well, that's all the sample code in the template is for. But it has all the hot reloading stuff set preset up. So I will just remove the stuff I do not need. Maybe we can keep the player position, because that will have anyways. Well, yeah, I guess let's just remove this stuff. And this stuff. Don't need any of that. Right. And then the rest is just, so this template just sets up a window, Raylib stuff, init a window, and then it, when it initializes some memory, and then every time it hot reloads, it reuses the same memory. And other than that, you just write your gameplay code in this update proc here, and you can draw stuff in here. That's it. Let's see. We need some kind of character. I'm gonna do my classic 180 tall window in widescreen that becomes 320 by 180. The true, my favorite resolution. So let's go and maybe draw a rectangle with for the player. So we, inside game memory here, we have a player position, and using that, we can set that, well, that is at origin currently. So we can, so there's a game camera here. This game camera just zooms up the view so that the view matches 180 pixels high, and it puts the camera on the player, so the player is in the middle. Not sure if I want the game camera today, like the moving camera. Let's just remove that for now. It's sometimes more trouble than it is worth. I just remove that for now. So we will draw a rectangle. My LSP is not working. That's interesting. Hold, please. Let me restart Sublime. That usually does it. Yeah. Unclear. So we need a rectangle for the player. That use something like player rec is a well, I can write rl.rectangle is a Raylib rectangle, but you can also just type rect because I think I have a alias for that. So we put this rectangle at gmem.playerpost.x and y, and then we make it maybe 20. We make it. How high how big do we make it? We make it 16 high and 16 and 8 wide maybe. But that's the other way around. X position, Y position with fight, right? And we draw this rectangle with maybe a red color. Player. Right, now it's complaining. I had exact same thing yesterday. So you do like this just to... I know I will need this later, so I just make the compiler stop complaining by defining them to nothing. So they have a little rectangle up in the corner. So you see this view here is... this is very tiny because I do not use the camera yet. So you have something like you begin draw, clear, draw thing. So let's use the camera, rl.begin. I know there was a sample coder for the camera. But I removed that because it's easier to have people follow along if there's not lots of sample code, I think. I see there, it zooms up correctly. Okay, maybe we put the player at some more fun position. Player pos equals, I don't know, 50-50. This is just the starting position. This is the init proc here. So you make a new game memory and then you reset it because they are hot reloaded. But since this only happens once at setup, you have to. I pressed the F6 here, which is bound to in this prototype to reset the game. And reset means that it actually it's almost like restarting the game without restarting it. It shuts down. It deletes all the memory and then sets up new memory, which will run this again. But when you use hot reload, it doesn't do any of this. It just, when it's hot reload, it just keeps using the same memory. The only caveat is that it runs this game hot reloaded procedure to update any global pointers. Because this stuff is compiled to a DLL, right? And the DLL, any global, when you load a new DLL, any like globals that sit in the static memory of the DLL have the default value. So in this case, I need to reset this little pointer here that's global that lives in the DLL. Okay, I was thinking that we can do something like a box that we can stand on, maybe. Yeah, that's always a good start. Let me bring up cat and onion code because I have some. Let me see here. I have some in there. I have some collision code that I might want. So this is my code for my game that's on Steam. But what I want to steal from here is, we'll adapt it and I'll explain what it does, but it's just some... By the way, this file is 12,000 lines. You don't need to split everything into tiny files. I mean, it's good to be organized, but I wasn't, but I'm still managed to ship a game. So you don't, if you feel like you must do everything super organized to get anywhere, then you can do a bit however you want. It's fine. Okay, here is the stuff for the collision. If you see blah 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 blah, this one does like a proper. We don't need to do this right now. This is sort of a proper fixed time step update, so it's totally frame rate independent, and you don't fall through things and blah blah blah. But let's steal. I will steal all this code, copy it, and then we will remove almost everything. So, player, let's just make a little, let me do something here. I know we will want a player struct. I know that already. Let's make a player struct. Player is a struct. Maybe I almost have trouble putting the window. Maybe if I make the chat a bit smaller here and I put the window here, I can still see what people write. Maybe that's a good idea. So the player has a position and a velocity. Right. We can remove that and just write player is a player. Player. And then we go to the bottom here and we say player equals, and then pos is blah. Pos is this thing. And then we can do something like this. Player.pos. Player.pos. Right. This should still work. Yeah, no problem there. Wait, did this? Yeah, oh yeah, of course, I don't have any movement. I was like, why can't I move? I will add movement momentarily. First, I want to make it. Let's just do something. Let's just do this completely. Usually people start with making the character move, which I usually do in all my things like this. But let's just make it start with gravity, fall into a block, see how that works, and then we can add some movement. So, we need to add, I just had this as some sort of reference code here for this stuff, because otherwise I get lost. So we need to get the player. Let's just take out a pointer to gmail.player in the variable p. And then we say p.vel.y, this is the velocity in the y direction, plus equals some kind of gravity. Let's just get the frame time here and say 1000 times dt. It's just exactly what I wrote here. This is what I did in Cat and Onion. Okay, let's remove that. So when you do collision detection in 2D, there's lots of different fancy techniques to do this. One thing you can do is you can first move the player in the y direction and do all the collision checks in the y direction, and then move the player in the x direction using the velocity and then do all those checks. That makes the collision way more stable than if you move it in both directions at once and try to resolve the collision in both directions at once. Because it doesn't become ambiguous which sort of direction is more important. And like if you have trouble like with your character running across a floor and sort of getting stuck on the ground between seams of things and stuff like that, this usually addresses that. So we say here, this is the y part. So we say p.pos_y plus equals p.vel.y times dt. So that moves it down. If we just do this, I think you see the character fell off. Very good. Whee! We have no colliders yet. Let's add a block to stand on. I will just put let's call it a tile. Let's just block is a struct. We will replace this very soon, but we say something like it's just a rectangle. Well, then we don't need a struct. We just say block rect. We just have it there so we can write down here. We can say block is this is just for testing. It's at position 20. I'm just looking at this. It needs to be underneath the player. So I'm like 20, 100. That's the position. How big is it? It's 100 wide and 30 thick. Okay, let's go ahead and draw this block. So we go here, rl.draw rectangle, rl.draw rectangle rec, gmm.block. There you go, there it is. Player still falls through, of course, because we're not doing any collision checks against this block, but it's there. Let's now do some collision check against the block. So we fall here, and what we can do is, we only have, we're gonna have a loop here later that we will loop over lots of blocks. But for now, we can just do something like this, where we say r equals gmm.block, because this will be like a loop variable, like in this algorithm here. And then what you can do is, in Raylib there's a thing called getCollisionRec, which gets the overlap between two rectangles, right? So we will do that, and I realize maybe I can do like this: player rectangle, calc player rect proc. That returns a rect. Good. And then we do like this. We go in here, return blah. So we can use the same stuff there. Whoop. Like that. We go up here again, blah blah blah, and we say over. We can call it col, but it's actually the overlap between the two. We can call it overlap. It's rl.getCollisionRec between. And we can say here player col is get the calc player rect. And then we say that we want to check the overlap between the block, this one, and the player, the red thing here. So we get that, and if col.height is not 0, we only look in the. So this overlap rectangle will be at the world, like if it will be at the world position where the overlap is. So if you have like if you touch this yellow rectangle in the bottom right corner, then your world position will be the top left where the overlap starts, and it will have the width and the height of however big the overlap between those two is. And now there's a fly that's very excited to get out. Calm down. And I think this, you can do this in a couple of different ways, but what you want to do then is to push the player out of collision in the X direction using the height of this thing, right? But depending on if the middle of the player is below it or above it, you can just change the sign of, because the height is unsigned, right? It's always positive. So what you can do is that's why I do this here, and I can just rewrite this to explain why. So sign can be player collider.y if the player call.y plus the player call.height divided by 2. That means the middle of this red thing here. I'm just resetting the game over and over here. If the middle of the red thing is less than r.y plus r.height divided by 2, that means that the middle of the red thing is above the middle of the yellow thing. Then the sign is -1, otherwise it's +1. I guess you could do this also by, you could also actually subtract these two and use Odin's sign proc or something, I think. Because, yeah, wait, let's try that. Sign, is there a math.sign? Let's just see what it does. Interesting. We can do that later. This probably needs to have an explicit type, because this two over here don't have an explicit type. Right. So then we can say that p.pos plus equals overlap dot height. I'm just looking at the code I copied in down here. Oh yeah, this is called overlap. I look too much at the code. And there you go. You see, it now stands there. Oh, the reason I was like, why does it flow off it? This is you could call it an Odin peculiarity, but it's just due to how the array programming works, that you can add a number to a vector, and it will add it to both components. So in this case, I do this mistake sometimes. You see p.pos, you quite quickly discover it usually, but it should say p.pos to y here, of course. Now it stands there very nicely. Get pushed out of collision. I can't move sideways yet, so there's no way to test the x and y. Oh yeah, what happened there was that it eventually got such a high velocity that it fell straight through. There's two things here. You should of course set p.vel.y equals 0. But also that shouldn't be able to happen, but if you do a proper, well, that will always happen unless you do sort of like some kind of continuous collision detection, because eventually you get enough velocity, like even though you do like a fixed time step here, where no matter how small you choose your DT, you can always, unless it's 0, you can always find some velocity that is big enough so that it falls through. So if you just continuously add to the velocity without resetting it, when you hit the ground, you will fall through eventually. Hello, Chris, PHP. I think it's very funny that the programming language PHP, these days it stands for like I don't even remember, hypertext preprocess. I don't know what it stands for, but the funny thing is that PHP, the original name is personal homepage, which I think is the goofiest name ever. Yeah, okay, you only remember personal homepage. Yeah, I don't remember. I think it's like some kind of, I think it's just called PHP hypertext preprocessor or something these days. So the acronym doesn't mean anything anymore really, which is sad. They should just have called it personal homepage. It had a good hearty feeling to it, right? Right, so let's add the x part here. p.post.x plus equals p.vel.x times dt. We don't have an x velocity, but we can add some input maybe and move it sideways. Let's see here. If let's just do movement is a vec2. If rl.is key down dot left, then we say movement.x minus 1, blah blah blah, right, plus 1. We don't have a movement, we don't control the velocity using, like, that's controlled using physics, right, mostly, and jumping. But then we can say p.vel. There's a couple of different ways to do this, but you can say p.vel.x equals movement.x times some number. I mean, here you're just setting the velocity in pixels per second, essentially. Maybe that's a good number, I don't know. You see, now I can move sideways, and I can fall off. So, but there's still no collision check sideways. So if I had another block, then that wouldn't work. We don't see that yet. Maybe let's make a little array here called make a dynamic array of rect block. It's a nice car alarm going off. Someone's cat sat on a car or something. So we append to gmem.blocks. Blocks. We can append this rectangle, rect. Now we get a nice list of rectangles instead. So we can have more than one. And this one needs to be over here, so I want to walk into it from the side so that I can test some X collision detection in sideways. So we say 100 and then maybe 20, and we say that this one is 30 thick, but it's like 100 high. That doesn't make any sense. This needs an ampersand because you need a pointer to append, so it can modify the state inside it. And now this of course doesn't work, but here is why I put a scope here, so we can do for r in gmem.blocks. Right. Kaplum. Then I silence my phone. So. And then of course we need to draw all of those. For r in gmem.blocks. Maybe it should be b. I don't know. It's always the question if one should have loop variables. No, it's a rectangle. If one should have loop variables that make sense, or like, should you always use the same? Should you use like it for iterator, or should you do something else? Why didn't that work? Why is, oh, maybe I need to reset the game. No? Okay. Here we add a block at, wait, this one is outside the screen. What have I even written here? It's supposed to be like that maybe. There you go. Oh, that that was a lucky. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it probably makes sense, but I didn't expect it to line up so perfectly. So here you see something funny. I can walk into it from the side, and it sort of shoots up like that. And that's because it doesn't resolve it in X direction. So the next frame, it resolves it first in Y direction. So you just walk up on top. But we will fix that now. So an important thing here is, since you do these two separated, and like I said, you separate the X and the Y part to make the collision resolve more stable, in the sense that it doesn't sometimes try to push you in Y first, or like it doesn't before it, like otherwise you can sink a bit into a collider, and then it pushes you both in X and Y direction, and if you do, then you just walk on top of a surface, then your character can start jittering. So I want to push it first in the Y direction, so it stands nicely, and then the X part usually never happens. So because of that, it's important to take out the player collider twice. You don't put it out here, because this is based on the position of the player, and the position of the player may change here. So we do that twice, and then I just copy this stuff. So people might be like, oh, but isn't it unnecessary to loop over all these blocks twice? Yeah, but if you want to do this in sort of two phases, you have to do that. What you can do to speed this up if it gets slow, you can have some kind of broad phase physics pass, where you just check which things are actually nearby me, sort of, and then there's no problem in doing this twice. But if you have a simple game, usually it's fine to just do all of the blocks twice, depending on how big your world is. Like if you have just one screen, then you can do that. Okay, the problem here is that we can't have, I just copied that, but we can't have, this should be X, right? Because now we're going in X part. So this should be X, and this should be X. This height here should be width. We should add to the position. We have the width, the overlap width, and then we set the X velocity to 0. Now we no longer fly up on top. Right. You see how now we can remove this. This has some additional stuff that's related to Cat and Onion. That is like a little gameplay stuff, but this is sort of the important part. You just add some gravity, resolve in Y part or next part, and then in X part. And then this thing where I fly up on top no longer happens here. And it should never happen, because after it is done with this part, it goes to the next lap of the loop, right? And it will always push it out in the X direction, like, because it adds the X position separately and the Y position separately. It doesn't add both at the same time. So the X movement has never happened until it's gonna do the collision check in X direction. So it doesn't just jump up on top like that anymore. I shipped Cat and Onion like that, and there was no big trouble. I was thinking like maybe there could be like some floating point issue where you do end up sort of inside this and you snap up on top. But not what I've noticed. Okay, good. We have that. What are we doing now? Oh yeah, let's make that block a bit smaller. This is the height, 50. Let's move it down a bit. Wait, it's wrong number. Right, 80 there. Right. Let's add a little jumpy jump. And in order to jump, you must know if you're, like, we can do like this. We can go down here and we can say if rl.is key pressed dot space, and then we say p.vel.y equals minus, I don't know, 400 maybe. Then you can jump, right? Now you can jump up on top here, but you can jump in air, which is Now it's Flappy Bird. There's actually a where it snaps up on top. Wonder why. Interesting. We'll look at that later. So we don't want it to be able to jump in the air, and one easy way to do this actually is to have like grounded falls, bool, I mean, and then if you were pushed by gravity into a block so that you collided from the top, then grounded is true. Hello, Art. No, the blocks are not merged into one collider. It's just two separate ones. There's one here and one here. Grounded. Let me check something real quick here. Should this break here or not? So what you, this is quite simple, because since you always get pushed down into the ground by the gravity, then you can just check. Was I pushed down into the ground? Now I can only jump when I'm on the ground. I can no longer jump in the air. And that jumping is perhaps a bit overexcited. That's a 270. Hop, hop, hop. Can make the movement tiny bit quicker. Yeah, so there is some interesting things going on there. Why does it... Let me check something here. Is it snaps up on top like that? I was thinking if it's maybe because they overlap. Oi. I wanted to put 80. Like, maybe if we do like this, it's quite obviously that they don't overlap. You can still sort of snap up on top. Interesting. It doesn't seem to happen from this side. But it does seem to happen from the other side. Why? Let me check. Let me just try something. If I take the width, is there a problem with my stupid code? If I make it a tiny bit bigger. No, it's not that. Because it pushes it up, but it should never be inside it anymore. What happened to the other one here? Yeah, happened from the left. What's from the right? Okay. Let me just try adding a whole pixel to that. Yeah, good. Check something in here. Ah, I see the problem. There is a bug. I added a parenthesis a bit because there was a parenthesis here. So there was a parenthesis here, so I added one here, but I added it in the wrong place. They should divide the height by 2. Now it will work. I mean, now I can remove this crap. Hello, lol. Yeah, Raylib. I mean, Raylib has this basic. You can overlap rects. It doesn't have any real physics, but what real physics is if you just need rectangles that collide with each other, you can do something simple like this. You see, now this works fine. I was just having a little bug. But if you want what's it called? Rigid body physics or weird shapes, you can use that. I have a short video where I do like a 1 hour. I try to set up, and it's not a short video, but I have a video where I do like a stream where I try to set up Box 2D with Raylib in 1 hour. It's quite chaotic, but it was kind of fun. I'd never used Box 2D before. I might use it for some project, because writing all my own physics code is maybe, I don't know. Right, so now that works. Sorry about that. I'm so silly. I added that parenthesis. Oh yeah, let's do the what's it called? They use the math.sign instead. Math.sign. So what we do is, whatever. There is, you can use that. You can subtract this from this and use sign, but that's not important. And you see, the interesting thing here is that now I have no permanent state for grounded. It's just the grounded is if it was pushed into the ground this frame, then it can use it down here. So after this has happened, it sort of knows that. But of course, if you have some kind of where the colliders go to sleep, so that they don't like move anymore, then that won't work. Now we want to have some way to place some blocks that we can move around on. Let's do my favorite part. Let's replace this thing with some kind of character. How big is it? 8 times 16. What palette do we use today? Game Boy. Windows 16. It's just bubblegum 16. Wow. We will make this one has a it has a big red head. Wait, this is just 2 balls now. Let's see. Let's start over. This is almost as good as my my character from yesterday. It's pink. It has a head. Remove that. Put in some nice legs. Wow. Looking pretty good here. How about that's excellent. Needs green pants too. Very good. And now I'll show you my I did a little thing here yesterday. So if we make a folder called textures in our game, and I have player dot I just say this on a Sprite file, player.ace. What I did yesterday was that I added my Atlas builder to the game Odin Raylib hot reload template. So what we can do is we can go to build the hot reload.bat, and here it says uncomment these lines if you want to build an atlas from any A-Sprite files in texture subfolder, blah 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 blah, it says. Right. Whoa. So we do that. We uncomment these lines. So what this does is it builds the stuff in Atlas Builder, which is this folder here that has. And this thing contains a loader to load.asprite files and stuff. And it combines everything inside the textures folder in here into an atlas and then outputs some metadata. Hopefully that works. Seems to have worked. And the nice thing is then you have the atlas.odin. No, not this one. Atlas.odin. This one. So now you see, it already, there's none and there's player here. It bases this name on the file name. And it says, where in the atlas is the player? Like this. So now we can just do this. We can go down here and to draw, I mean. We can say rl.draw texture. We have to load the atlas also, of course. I'll take that one. Yeah, let's load the atlas first. So we say atlas is rl.load texture, and in atlas.odin at the bottom it says the atlas texture atlas file name. So we can just do like that. And then we go to the top and we add the atlas as texture. And then we go back to draw, and then we can say gmem.atlas. So we only have one texture to draw with, but we need to know where in the texture is the player player texture. Player texture is, and then we can look here again. There is atlas textures. So you take the texture name enum and use the one for your texture. Okay, it is called player. So you say atlas textures.player. So this atlas.odin is generated each time I compile. This runs before it compiles the game, which outputs an atlas.odin file that I can use. So I have I can use in my code I can like statically refer to texture names that are on disk, essentially. So there's no like runtime, like I can reason about resources within the code in a interesting way. So then this player PT for player texture contains the rectangle, and then we need a position that's, you know, player pos, and then it wants a tint. Reset, and there you go. Why does it look like that? I'm like, huh? Let's have a look. Maybe there's a... Well... Oh wait, I still... It looks like that because I'm still drawing the rectangle behind it. There you go. Now you have that. Let's pick a nicer background color. Wait, if I use this, will it... This is legible, I think. Wrong hotkey. I want this one. These are the RGB values. Smack. There we go. Right. It's almost animal well already. It's quite funny in Animal Well how the player character is sort of a ball. It's just, and the tile size Animal Well is like 8x8, so just an 8x8 pixel strange ball that runs around. Okay, so we have that. The reason I put this Atlas stuff in is that I realized I quite often want it, and it's just nice to have it from the start, so I don't have to change the code later to put it in. And the only thing you need to do is, if you used my template, is to uncomment these lines in here, and then you will get atlas.odin outputted, and you will need to put your textures in a subfolder called textures. And you can put a Sprite files directly, and it will output this this fancy PNG here. This square here is for Raylib, it's the shape drawing texture, but that one is not used currently. And it can also output a font into here and some stuff. You can look into there is a bug currently that doesn't support layers in the Sprite file. I will add that at some point. It just needs to split the different layers into the picture, but I was a bit lazy. Haven't added that. It also supports PNG files, so you can put those in the folder as well. Anyways, now we need to somehow to add lots of little blocks that we can you fall through the ground, because the delta time becomes very high when you hold the window, so you fall through. Let's maybe let's do a nice thing here. This is always good to do. Let's do like a fixed time step thingy real quick. Let's stop using the frame time like this. It's not a good idea. Let's instead just let's do like this. We take a DT here that is a F32 like that, and then all this runs, and then we will just modify out here. I will maybe, what do we need to do now again to, oh no, yeah, we need to accumulate. I mean, I just keep looking at the cat and onion source sometimes for these tricky things to get them correct. What do we call this? Time. No, it's not time. It's like accumulated time. Must be a shorter word for that. I don't know. So what we do to make this time step sort of use fixed time step is that we add rl.getFrameTime here, and then we loop for gmem.accumulated_frame_time is bigger than, and then we need to choose time step. Time step I say is 1.0 over 60.0, like a 60 hertz. So for as long as this time step is bigger than blah blah blah, we run this and then we say gmem.accumulated time minus equals time step. Then we just throw in time step here. There is no variable dt. You see now it doesn't matter how long I hold it. This already works. There are some shenanigans here that you might wanna look at for this. For example, I can jump several times. Is 4 Odin's while? Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, 4 is the only loop in Odin. If you write like this, then it's like a while loop. So this is just loop as long as this is bigger than this, but you can write for r_in. This is like an iterating loop that iterates over all these, and you can also just write, if you just write for like this, this is like while true in this is like this in C or C++. So there is only the for loop because it can actually express all of them. Okay, so there's some problems here. Like now I can't jump anymore, and only sometimes because, and that is because, let's see here. Yeah, that's because, wait, why is that? Is key pressed? Right. So one problem with these kind of how to say fixed time step things is that there will be stuff that should only happen once. For example, if you do there can be some funny stuff with input, essentially. Because you can react to the same input several times, I think. But why does it... I can no longer jump. Well, I can jump sometimes. Hello, Tiva So, who's used my Odin series. Thank you for watching it. TBS asks, in Raylib, is there a good ECS system like Ent, and what is your take on ECS? I mean, Raylib is very low level, so well, not very low level, but it doesn't have any stuff like that, like, right? It only has the basic stuff. There's probably someone who has made like an ECS. If you go to the Odin Discord and search for ECS, you probably find it. But my take on ECS is that you probably don't need it, right? Because if you do like the full-blown ECS where you have like this rigid system for how to update your components and all that, it puts lots of requirements on how you write your gameplay code, right? It kind of steers you in a certain direction. And if you're just trying to get started with a little game, then it will probably slow you down. And also the performance benefit from having like this, like a very nicely data-oriented ECS, I don't think you will see that like if you're just making a game for yourself. Like if you're making a huge game with lots of people where you maybe have like you're making an RTS with thousands of units that run around and stuff, then maybe you will see it, but you would probably never reap the benefits of the ECS if you're making a small indie game or something, unless you have a very specific needs. But it will make the gameplay code harder to write. And if the gameplay code is harder to write, it will be less fun to write. So your game will not be as good because you couldn't work as quickly and as passionately on it as you could have done. So I would say just make a struct and put your state in there and write the simplest code you can, and don't use an ECS unless you really, really, like you really must. But almost everyone that uses that is like, oh, I'm making an ECS, or I want to use an ECS or something. Almost no one of those actually need an ECS. It's more of a, I think many people do it because they think it's a fun programming problem. But if you like that, then you can do that. But if you want to make a game, but you think you need an ECS, then you're probably sort of over-engineering things. Right. Whoa. Okay. Why can't I did this thing here now? Now I can't jump anymore. Well, I can jump, but it doesn't work all the time. Is key pressed? Then it sets the velocity upwards. Wait, what's wrong here? All right, I think I know. Oh yeah, I know. It gets pushed. Like this thing here probably shouldn't check input at all. That should be done once. But I'm just trying to figure out why it doesn't work. This should work, and I mean it does. And this thing here checks if is key pressed. Yeah, chat says I'm quite new to Odin, not sure how to structure code. I used OOP and Odin is quite different. I think maybe what you're missing is that, well, some people think that there is sort of a magic, like a correct way to do things, and that they just haven't learned it. And if they do that, there's like a nice way to do it. There actually isn't, and there is no correct way to structure it really. Like if you are making a game, you can just like in this case, I just have the player struct here, and I have this update proc here, and I modify it in there, and then I have this proc down here where I draw it. But this is not, I mean, this is just, I'm just doing the most simple thing I can do, and that's just put your state in structs and have procedures that change your state based on input and your simulation or whatever. and then draw things on the screen. Don't worry about this structure stuff. It will come as you will find your own structure as you do it more. You don't need to worry too much about it. But if you come from OOP, maybe you're like, oh, how do I do this? I used to use my class with my interfaces and blah blah, you know, all these things. But just think like, when you want to store some information, put it in a struct, have it somewhere, and then have some procedures that just modify those. There's no need to try to be like do anything more fancy than that. Catbo says it's nice to see me struggle a bit, because that makes them fear their own struggle in their own project less. That's nice. Thank you. I think people think that everyone has everything figured out, but no one actually does. Everyone is just like, I mean, I know graphics programmers that are like super talented, that they're always like, oh, how do I, you know, it's not like they can do everything. Like, how do I draw a triangle now again on the screen, you know? And then they'll be like, oh, I don't remember. They have to go look some stuff up. It's usually more, the reason people are good at things is because they can solve problems, and you solve problems a bit by struggling but not giving up, right? Okay, this input stuff, I'm just trying to see why doesn't this is grounded. I think when you do a fix step, because what happens now is that you get these multiple update steps. What you should do, which is what I want to do, but I was trying to understand why it didn't work. You should probably have a struct called input, right? And then you'd be like movement, movement X, and then jump bool. That's your input struct. And then, where am I? Here. And then before I do any of this, I just say input, like this. And then I can just take this blah 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 here. Wait, I saw something there. No, whatever. It was nothing. And then I say input.movement X. Input.movement X plus 1. And then I also take the jumpy key. If r.is key pressed space. And if you have a struct like this, then it's also easy to add gamepad support or something like that, because you just need to check different keys and set these things, right? So now I can send in the input here instead, like that. Oh. I saw the chat says I saw the Patreon. Oh yeah, I mentioned the book stuff on the Patreon and what I'm working on. Yeah, so I'm currently writing a book on, like, as an introduction to the Odin programming language, which is partially based on the blog post I did on introduction to Odin. But it will like just be like it's not a reference guide, more of like a brain dump book. Like, these are sort of there's the online documentation, and then there's things there's the online documentation, and then there's a demo file for Odin. But then, it's all the things you learned from using it for a few years, and I try to just fill in those gaps a bit and just have sort of an intuitive explanation of some stuff. So I'm writing a book about it, and it will probably be like an online book at first, because who can be bothered to print things? So we'll see. I think my code is... Wait, is it... Why doesn't this work? I thought this would be easy. The jump, I mean, you hear I'm pressing space many times, and it's only... I think I know. I know why. I know why this happens. Yeah. I will tell you why it happens. Wait, main hotflow. Does this even have... Just checking something here. Wait. I'm just checking something. 500 frames per second. Yeah, so there is a thing here, right? I think I know what happens. Some frames it misses completely. Now, yeah, so now it seems to work. This is a subtle, funny thing, right? What happened? And I need to fix it somehow. So I didn't have VSync on, which I have now, but we can just turn off VSync and set the frame rate to max 70 frames per second, or maybe 120 is good. Now, oh, and then we need to restart it because VSync flag doesn't clear unless you restart. Yeah. So now it misses the jump every second frame. And this is because if you look at this code down here, this loop only runs if there is enough accumulate, if there's at least like 16 ms roughly, 1/60 in this accumulator. But since the frame time is so small, it's 120 FPS. That's like is that 8 milliseconds maybe? How does math work? Yeah, 8.3 milliseconds. So it usually takes at least 2 frames to get to one physics frame. So, and since the input is only valid for 1 frame, then it gets cleared. Like, let me show you here. Inside draw here it runs begin drawing and end drawing, and then at end drawing it clears the Raylib's global input state, right? So you miss these key presses. I don't usually do it like this, where I just, well, you know, if you look at like Unity and stuff, sometimes you have like a fixed time step. So you have a fixed update and then you have an update proc. So like if you look at Unity, for example, you have fixed update and then update. And in fixed update, you have this fixed time step, and in update, you have that runs every frame. And I guess they figured this stuff out somehow. But what I need to do here essentially is that unless this runs at least once, I need to maybe accumulate the input. I'm gonna get more coffee and think about it. Dum, 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 dum. So, yes. Yeah, in some games people they only do some parts of the frame with fixed time step, but I thought it would be nice, and I talked to some people about this, that maybe it's nicer to always run your whole update loop at fixed time step. But I think already back then I realized that you would sometimes have trouble with input, like in this case, where your input gets cleared. So Semster says, how about checking input in update instead of game update? Yeah, but it still won't work because you see this loop here. If this isn't bigger than time step, then this won't run at all, right? And in draw, it runs begin draw and end draw. At end draw, Raylib replaces the whole global input state. Like it, for example, is key pressed? That checks, was the key press this frame? If you miss to check that key press, that frame, then it's gone forever. So you can miss, like, this will only be true for one frame. If we fail to use this information for anything, then draw will run down here and end drawing will run, and then this is no longer true. But this is more like if I had split up this into a fixed time step and a normal one, then it would be fine. This is more of a problem with me doing this always, but I think that's nice. I think the only problem you have with this is input, really, but I'm not 100% sure yet. But what I will try to do, just to fix this for now, is this. We will put the input in here, in the game memory, right? And if let's do like this. If gmem.accumulated time is bigger than time step, we can just move. We can move all this. Doesn't matter, but then wait. It all no wait. It in this case it will replace the input. this maybe. It replaces the input. Maybe we can do something like this. I'm just freestyling this a bit. I do like this and we return that there. So then we can make these like that. Then we replace the whole input with get input. Zach asks if I have given Sokol a go yet. No, actually I haven't. I was going to try it at some point, but Sokol, for those who don't know, is like a more low-level graphics and application library for doing cross-platform stuff. It's more low-level than Raylib, and you can do like, it's more like a abstraction of an application, like opening a window and doing input, but specifically also rendering, so you can render like sort of it. I think the interface looks a bit like DirectX 11 or something maybe, but more C-like or something. It's like a, but it underneath you can run Vulkan, Metal, OpenGL, I think maybe, at least Vulkan and Metal and some other stuff. Anyways, but I haven't tried it yet. I was thinking I should make something more using Raylib first. I would try to make a game using that. So if this is my idea here. If this happens, then we do like that. If not, then so if this happens, then we're about to perhaps lose this input here. Is keys pressed space might only be true for one frame, and if we are not gonna step anything, then we might lose it. So we just do like this: get input, we fetch the input, then we merge them. So we say gmem.input.jump equals .jump equals gmem.input.jump. Can I do like, is this an operator? I should clear that. I can show you something here. I have, when you close this, it says game.odin leaked 128 bytes. That's because I have in here, I have a dynamic array, so I need to clear that. I've been thinking if I should perhaps have a separate allocator that doesn't have the tracking allocator for things that are allocated once, that don't need clearing at shutdown, because that just makes your program slower to shut down, right? You don't need, if you have a one array that there's only one of, for example, or if you allocate some memory at startup, then you do not need to free it when you shut down. That will happen automatically because, I mean, you have virtualized memory and stuff. Your operating system takes care of it. But this is just to make my tracking allocator happy, so I don't miss other things. I do this, but I think you don't need to worry about that too much. That it like, because yeah, it is a bit funny, right? Sometimes you shut down a game and it takes a really long time to shut down because it's probably have a million heap allocations and it's running around clearing them. But when you shut down the game, like if you shut down a big AAA game, sometimes it can take a really long time to shut down. But in a sense, the only thing you need to do is make sure that maybe you want to save the game or save some configuration file and then just shut it down. Just don't free anything. Just shut it down. You don't need to, because you're you're gonna shut it down anyways. So I was playing like Deus Ex Human Revolution the other day, and I shut it down, and it was just sitting there for 10 seconds, just probably freeing memory with a million heap allocations or something like that. And I was like, well, there's two problems here maybe. One problem is that they've probably used a million heap allocations. I don't know why else a game would take that long to shut down. But also, even if you did that, you don't need to free them anyways, because you can just make sure everything is saved and then just exit with return code 0. Just boop. And you'll be fine. Exit 0, a great shutdown optimization. Why does this doesn't still work? Oh wait, this I can't do this. Okay, I still have the same problem. Wait, I need to think a bit here. If you are gonna step, because this when it actually gets inside here, it replaces the input again, right? How do I know that I should clear the... Is it maybe here? It should clear the input. It's funny I got stuck on this, because this is just because I do this slightly different in this case. Maybe it should be like this. No, wait, then I don't get the input. Maybe this is the correct. I fetch the input, and then I say whatever is in input.jump should be... Then it ORs them together. Wait, but then it never... Wait, we do like this. Old input is gmem.input. Then we replace like this, gmem.input. We replace it with that one, and then we say that jump is... So we just carry over the jump. This will probably work. Yeah, now it works. That was a lot of something. So just to quickly explain here. So I take the old input, and then I get the new input, and then some things, like this thing doesn't matter, because this is for key held down. Well, it... Yeah, it's... I don't think it's gonna matter. This stuff, held down for the movement, because it's a key down. Those are true for several frames. However, is key pressed... Well, I could, I guess in theory, get a... I don't know. I don't know if maybe it should... input.movement.x plus equals... Well, no, that's not a good idea. Whatever. I can... The movement is... It might be a bit buggy, but... Anyways. And then it... What it does here, it just sets jump to... This is the same as doing gmem.input.jump or all the... So if I jump this frame, or if there was an old jump in there, and there would be an old jump unless this has run. But yeah, now this works, so that's all good. Semsu says that maybe using isKey press is bad since input has to be frame perfect. Well, I think it's correct to use it. Like, yes, if you haven't landed yet on the ground, like if you're just above the ground and haven't landed yet, then you might miss it. But I think that's more of a problem with maybe adding in like how many millisecond, how long time ago is it since jump was pressed, and then you check like, okay, if it was less than 0.01 seconds, or it was less than 0.1 seconds, then you still get to jump, and then it sets, yeah, so you can do something like that, but then you can still use key pressed space. But now this works. That was a lot of time spent on that. Interesting. Okay, I have maybe 1 more hour to work on this, because this is my morning stream. So let's add some kind of, I mean, I haven't gotten to the Metroidvania stuff, as usual. But it's... that's fine. That is fine. Let's add, so we can put some blocks out maybe. I'm gonna... Let's make... What do I want to do now? I don't have a clear... I mean, this all works fine. There is also a thing here about the fixed frame update, that you should interpolate your movement. But I don't do that. I have a video on how I do that, but essentially you can smoothly move the player position because in some cases you will have frames with a new position, and then sometimes you won't. And then it might stutter a bit, so it's nice to sort of do that, interpolate that. What do I do now? I was thinking either I make a quick way to place these blocks like tiles, like a tiny editor thingy. I can do that probably in 30 minutes. Or I make some way to sort of go between 2 screens. The only question is, of course, should there even be screens? Should there be a moving camera? Or should you have fixed screens? I mean, I can add a moving camera also easily. The only thing you need to do is go up here and say target equals gmem.player.pos, and then offset is something like this. now you have a camera that follows the player, I think. Cameras that follow the player constantly like this are a bit annoying, but yeah, that's fine. Let's add a let's do a little editor thingy. That's fun. First, maybe I will, before I ruin everything, let me remove this git folder here because that's from the template, and then we do git init and we do git commit initial stuff. Git add in. I did the same typo again. There we go. So let's add a little editor thingy. So we do add an editing bool thingy there, and then we go to the bottom here and we say not here, but in game update maybe we can say if gmem.editing, we do this, then we just do let me just do short circuit this a bit here. If rl.iskey press.f2 gmem.editing equals not gmem.editing, like that. So if we're editing, so I do that now I can move, now I can't because it's in the editing mode. Good. When you're in the editing mode, then you want to somehow draw things, you want to place blocks somehow. Question if this should have a grid or if it should have more like a, I guess a tile-based grid is good. Let's go in here. How big tiles? 8 by 8 maybe. 8 pixels by 8 pixels. Let's go here. Let's make a nice one like this, like a nice it's brown. Wait, that's the same color as the pants, isn't it? Is it? Yeah. Let's do this. Very nice. Tile.ace. It should appear in our. And then let's move the begin drawing stuff out of there because I will need to draw things on top of the game as well. I will need to draw some editor stuff. So I do like this instead. So now here I can be like editor draw and editor update. Editor update and editor draw. And here I can say world mouse pos is rl.getMouse position. We get the camera, game camera. Well, we can say editor camera. Take this stuff, put it here, but then we say editor camera pos is a vec2, and then we go back down here and we say we target the editor camera pos like that. That's the editor camera, well, like that. We go back down here. Okay, that happens nicely now. And then we say rl.mouse screen to screen to world 2D, position and the camera. So then this will be in the camera space, and then we need to be able to move the editor camera. So we say if is rl.is key down w. We can just do this. I'm not going to use the input here because this is totally separate. It's nothing to do with it. So this is for moving the editor camera around like that. And then we say this is not used yet because I was gonna and then draw probably wants a camera instead. Because we will use different cameras depending on where we come from. So now the game still works, but if I do this and I can't move, why not? I can, it's just very slow. Classic, didn't. Now I can use WASD to move around quickly. Like that. And the speed is 200. Speed is an F32, that's 200. If RL.is key down left shift speed times 3. Classic editor stuff. So you can hold shift to move quickly like that. And then I want to draw my little tile on my mouse world position here. So we draw the atlas, but we take the rectangle for the tile texture, and then we draw it at the world mouse pos, and we use white. I'm again having this problem with the. I should change my. I had this yesterday as well. Autocomplete false, because it's annoying, the autocomplete. Wait, I'm in the wrong. Oh yeah, this is correct almost. This one doesn't use the rl.begin mode to the editor. Take the editor camera. rl.end mode to the. Bam. There's your tile under your cursor. Not snapping to any grid, but we can easily do that. Grid pos. Grid pos is a vector 2 that has world mouse pos.x divided by 8 math.floor times 8, I think. Maybe. And y, take the grid pos, and most. There you go, snappy, snappy, snap. And it correctly snaps. Yeah, it's not camera relative, it's world position relative, which is what you want. You want the grid to not be relative to where your camera is. So that's all correct. So let's try to add these little blocks in. Hello, Vatsalrai, who asks, what's the game about? I don't know yet. I'm just thought I'll do some 2D side scroller stuff. Maybe it's supposed to be like Metroidvania-ish, but I haven't gone very far. But I thought it would be fun to have something like a Metroidvania style world, but also with where you run into like weird and sweet characters maybe throughout the world, and not focus on combat, really, more of exploration. But we'll see. Okay, let's make it now so we can place these blocks. How do I... I mean, I don't have a grid really in here. I can just... Let's just do something stupid for now. We probably want some kind of grid. But we can do something silly like this for the moment. We say that there's a list of tiles, which is just a list of positions. There's no, I don't have any grid data structure yet, but that's fine. Yeah. So then whenever I hold down the mouse pause, where am I? Help, help. Got lost in my code. I'm a bit lazy, so I'm gonna do like this instead. Editor update will be down here. There will be no editor draw. You use draw and then you update the editor after that. So this stuff goes in here. Remove that. And then we can do something like this. The world grid, that is more of a world grid pos. And the grid pos, well, the grid pos is then this thing. Just divide by your grid size. Cast it to an integer. to an integer. And then you cast this back to a float. Cast that back to a float. Multiply by 8. This is how you snap something to a grid. You divide by a number, floor it to the nearest integer, and then you multiply up again, and then it will snap to a grid. But I want this grid pos here just so I can be like if rl.is key down dot left, then I unused equals is a bool for t in gmem.tiles if t equal so you set unused to true, and then if t equals grid pos, then unused is false, and you break this. This is just so you can place two tiles at the same position. So if it is unused still, then we say append gmem.tiles grid pos. This is not a good way to do this at all. You probably define some kind of grid where you can it's not really like right now. It's just an array of this is already declared in this project. Right now it's just an array of positions, right, of integer positions. But yeah, I just want to play around a bit. So let's now, if I press the mouse button here, it will actually place these, but it doesn't currently draw anything in gmem.tiles. So we will add that now, and then we can place these things, and then we can add a collision for them, and then that's all fun. I might move this stuff to a new file, editor.odin package game. Let's make this compile. Need to import some stuff in there. Go. Just toss this out so I don't need to think about it so much. So it's not in the way. Okay, now we go do this for t in gmem.tiles. Tile size 8 pixels. We set that there so we don't have to write it everywhere. So we take this integer position for each tile and we cast it to an F42 and then multiply by tile size. This is for drawing. And then we say draw texture rec. We also need the tile texture. We fetch that here. Tile text, atlas textures, player, tile. And then we can say atlas tile text, and then we say tile world pos. Yeah, dot rect. Again, this is just metadata about where in the atlas is the tile. So let's see now. Doesn't work. Gmail.tiles, blah blah blah. There's let's see here. This is the world position. Ah, is mouse button down? Left, not key. That's the left arrow key. There you go, now you can draw these. If rl.is key is mouse button down dot right. That's for deleting. Delete one at the. Now you can delete them as well with the right mouse button like that. And they're still there when I turn off the thingamajig. Let me do some stuff here. Game init. Editor, camera process, player. The player that just so. Okay, whatever. Okay, let's add now so we can stand on these. Okay, update blocks. Let's go over the tiles instead. We go over the tiles. We go. So we go over the tiles here instead. This is the tile position for each tile. Now we need to make a rectangle out of that for the tile position. So it's the same thing as... It's the same thing. It's the same thing as this essentially. Can just make a little proc here actually that takes a integer vector, returns a rectangle. It takes the position and then it returns vp.x, vp.y, tile size. This is a vector at the position where the tile should be. No, this is a rectangle. I mean, at the position where the tile should be with the size of the tile, sort of. And then we just say r equals tilerect tp here instead. So now we compile this. I can stand on this. It's shaking a bit. That was interesting. I hear it standing and shaking. Why? I wonder why it's shaking. I can't always jump, and it's sort of... It's so much shaky standing there. Let me... I think there needs to be a break here, actually. Because otherwise it will push you. Yeah, there you go, now it's stable. What happened there was that it was, since this loop continues to run, the one next to you also pushes you up, so you get pushed up twice if you stand just in between two tiles. That's probably a better way to do that, but meh. Now this works fine. Hop, hop, hop. Now you can just go around like paint. Of course, you will lose all your work if you shut down the game, but this is just me playing around. You see, we have like a pit here. We can fall down, jump up. We can remove those two blocks, at least a drawing for them. Boop. Something that I want to do, I realize. Like if I change this one to have like a orange head instead, then that doesn't work because it uses the atlas. But if I here, when I hot reload, if I say rl.unload texture gmem.atlas, and then I say gmem.atlas equals rl.load texture atlas text, what's it called? Texture atlas file name. If I do that, you see it reloaded there, and now I can do like this, go here, recompile, and it reloads the atlas. I even did this, I've done this previously in another project where I detected if any of the Sprite files were, if any of the Sprite files were changed, then I did like a reload. I recompiled the stuff, so I get a new atlas metadata file and new texture, and then I reload the texture, and that actually then you can sit in here and sort of draw and save, and you see it update. Programmer BGN asks, you not using a game engine? No, it's just Odin and Raylib for drawing stuff. That's maybe as a final. I only have like 20 minutes left for today. Let's maybe do a silly animation. That's fun. We add a new frame to this one. So we do like this maybe. This is how you walk. Didn't you know? Wait. So now if we So here's the thing. I think my Atlas builder comes with built-in stuff for I say the naming convention is a bit wrong here. I can fix that later. It comes with built-in animation support, so it knows that this is an animation. So it says the first frame is this one and the last frame is this one, and then I can skip between them. And I just need to essentially, this frame has a rectangle and this frame has a rectangle. So we just need to, how do we do that? Maybe we just do like this. This naming convention is wrong. It's my generated code is wrong. I can fix that later. Timer is an F32. So this is an animation. It knows which animation to use, and then it has a texture name to use. That's the current frame, and that will be player 0 and player 1. It will alternate between them, and then has a timer if you want to switch. And we can see anim is animation. Yeah, now I will lose my work when I compile this because, well, not yet, because this. Oh yeah, I have some animation code in here, but this one. I will take this code and then I will delete animation.odin. That's not for the Atlas based animation, so it's not very useful. So we say we have an animation and we say if the timer we decrease by dt, which we send in here, timer, and if the timer is less or equals to 0, then we set the timer to, well, then we need to move to the next frame first. If current frame equals atlas anim dot last frame, it's called, then, well, if a.current, then a.current frame is atlas anim, well, not atlas anim, a.atlas anim a.atlas anim.first frame. So that's just a wraparound. Else we go a.current frame plus frame equals animation name a int a.current frame plus 1. It just steps to the next one. Need to move that outside the parentheses. Just cast the enum to an integer and moves it forward once. And this is my bad naming. Wait, no. What is it called? Texture name. And then is that it? Do I need any of this? No. This makes it loop around. Wait, I need to, and then I need to set a.timer equals a.current frame dot duration, because each wait, no. If you look at the Atlas textures here, these have a duration at the end here. Which it reads from the Sprite file, because each frame in Sprite has a duration, so we can set the frame lengths in there. So the only thing you need to do is use Atlas texture current frame dot duration, like that. Then you have your timer. Then the only thing you need to do, this you don't need. The only thing you need to do when drawing the player is to fetch the current frame and take the rectangle and draw. So what you do here is you say player anim rect is Atlas textures player dot anim dot current frame dot rect. Move that, compile. Player anim rect not used, no, of course not. Here we go. Now everything disappeared. That's not so weird. Because... okay, wait, something is wrong. I need an initialization procedure probably for my... the player doesn't have an animation right now. Player.anim is create and... what's this? Doesn't exist. Now Sublime broke down, can't type anymore. Or is it my keyboard that disconnected suddenly? Yeah. Interesting. Be right back. Something is wrong. I have no keyboard anymore. La la la. I'm going under my table and try to fix it. Nope, you just died. Well. It just stopped working suddenly. Can't press anything. And I moved it to another USB port, but it still doesn't work. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. There we go. I've tried 3 different USB ports. This computer is a bit funny. I think something is wrong with the USB. Yeah, we just need an animation create procedure here. Create animation, and we want to say we do something like this maybe, and then we say here dot player, then we return current frame equals dot atlas animations anim. We fetch that one, and then we say first frame, and then we just need to set the timer equals atlas textures a dot first frame dot duration. There you go, that's all you need. Here we go. Now we just need to update animation somewhere. Good. Here maybe? No, wait. In here. Here. We say p.anim dt. It became a block, and then it crashed. That's fantastic. I think it read outside of the... Aha, I see the problem here. Can't do like this. We need to do like this. Current frame is blah blah blah. If current frame is bigger than last frame, then we set it to the first frame. I wrote a bit of a silly code there. Shouldn't this work? I'm gonna disable gravity for a bit because I'm not sure. Yeah, it only shows once. Animation update. I did this in another project. I had this little in here, I think. That one does like that. This is a similar thing I did. I could just steal this file actually, and it will always work. But in this case, in this one I use a integer. In this one I use the texture name straight up. Let me look in the atlas. You have your two things. The timer does that. Interesting. It only shows, which frame is it that shows? It's the first frame, then it disappears. Am I silly? Why wouldn't this work? I add 1 to the enum, I'm at 0, then I end up at 1. Cast it back to a texture name. What's wrong is that it disappears. It does, instead of going to the second frame, it just disappears. Because it's supposed to fetch the rectangle using the current frame of the animation from the atlas, and then like so if it is at the first frame, then now it would be at the second frame, and if it ever goes past that, then it will. Hello, Aku. I mean, it's probably better to do like I did in the other game. Like this one. Like this is from my other game where I use an integer instead. But let me check something here. If I do this instead, I say player 1, that's the second frame. And then player 0, that's the first frame. Yeah, you can see both frames, so that's not the problem. The problem is that, let's see, fmt.println, this whole thing here. None. Wait, did I? Stop showing me files are closed. Ah, I see the problem. I forgot to set this field in my right. So now I just keep the name of the animation here, and I fetch it from the metadata related to the atlas, which will make it fetch this one, so it knows first frame and last frame, and now everything will work. Look, tuk 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 tuk, amazing. And then we go fmt.print, remove that. Then we can go in here and we can put in some nice stuff like that. Then we re-enable the gravity. Like that. And then we... What? Oh yeah, there is a thing of... You see, it sort of it's supposed to bob up and down the animation. But it doesn't. But that's because I've forgotten to... Because here you must put animation player anim rect.offset. You must add that. No? Oh wait, this one. Player anim frame. So you take this one that's rect, and then you take this one that offset. I think that will. Mm-hmm. Ugh. Vec2 from Vec2i. Maybe. Yeah, now it pops up. And so, because so that you can pack the atlas tightly, it doesn't keep like white empty space around it. So it instead records where is the offset of each thing. So you need to do something like this. This you can tuck away in a procedure that like draw something using a texture from the atlas, and then it would be like that. Let's just, as a final thing here, make it stop moving when you're not walking. Update. If input.movement x is not 0, let me update the animation. Amazing. Now I just want to flip it also when you are facing different directions. Facing can be. Facing is an enum. There's east and west. Facing. Like that. This will ruin all my nice ground. The reason it resets there is because the struct layout changes, so it can't. Amazing gameplay. Now I want to flip the character. It's mostly the eyes and the. But let's do that. The way you flip it is something like this. Player source rect. This is the where it picks in the atlas from. And then you just say if the facing is west, then player source rect. But width times equals -1. I think that should work. I think not. Oh, I never update the facing, that's why. If input movement of x is bigger than 0, then p.facing equals east. Else if input movement x is less than 0, then p.facing is west. There you go. I can't get in between there because it's the jumping mechanic isn't very good. So that's pretty nice, I guess. You may see some black bars around here sometimes. It should be possible to fix that. It's just because the camera moves at sub-pixel positions. I probably need to add some padding in Atlas Creator. I thought I'd do that, but maybe not. I don't. Okay, I think that's all we had time for today. As usual, thanks to my patrons. I will put this on the Patreon GitHub thingy that patrons with source code access have access to. If you want to check anything out, and thank you all for watching. And yeah, this was pretty fun to work on actually. I don't know, I just like the painting a little thing where we can jump around like this. Maybe I wanna work more on this. I'll see. But I think my idea is that I will do like a couple of different, like maybe 3 different small things, and the one that's most fun to just play around with, I'll do another stream on working on. So maybe on Thursday or Friday or something, I will do one more stream. But yeah, that's it. I will see you all next time. Have a nice day and happy programming. Bye bye.